Hello everyone, welcome to the next part. In this one we'll be covering the base color of our dark tiles. So yeah, let's get started. So we are going to start by getting our trusty mask after the chipping. So let's find that. Actually, let me move some of this stuff. Let's move that over here. Close that. Alright. Okay, so we need the mask with the chipping. So yeah, this guy right here. Let's just put it over here, and then we'll move it later if we need to. Okay, so we're gonna drag out from it. And just drop a connector off for now. Now that we have our connector, we're actually gonna pull from it and we're gonna make a flood fill. Now, there's a better way I could have done this, but it's not a big deal. Okay, so from this guy, we're going to pull, oops, and do a invert grayscale. Now, this is a new node we haven't used yet that I just learned about. It's kind of useful. From the flood fill, we can do a flood fill to color. I'm just gonna copy and paste it over here. And your flood fill goes on top. And then you need a color. I'm gonna do a uniform color. And here are my values. And the other thing I did to save on performance, I lowered the resolution on my uniform color by going up here to the output size and lowering it to -7, which makes it 16 by 16. And the reason for that is because obviously the smaller it is, the less, the easier it'll be on your computer. And if you're making a simple material, it's probably not a big deal. But if you were to have like a bunch of these, they would start to pile up. I'm gonna make a separate video later about some like things to look out for when working in like Unreal Engine. That's what I'm most familiar with. Because sometimes, if you notice this thing right here, I don't know what the C stands for, I forget. But it's basically the output format. If you look over here in the top right, this is set to 8 bits per channel. So maybe it's like channel 8. I don't know, could be wrong. Someone can tell me. And then like, for example, this one says C16. So I guess it's 16. This is to override. So like if you want to override this, you can go here, set it to absolute. Sometimes I have an issue in Unreal Engine when I export my base color in C8 or C16. I forget which one's the correct one or the good one. Neither of them are technically wrong, but Unreal Engine I think works with like different like color settings or something. But anyways, uniform colors are always by default C8 or channel 8. And then if you look at, for example, like a Perlin noise, these are 16. I think it has to do with like color info because this is technically a color, and then this is grayscale. But you can force color into 16 by changing this absolute and then doing 16. And now we'll see here that it's 16, and it does cost more, I think, as well. Now, let's say we change this uniform to grayscale. It stays at L8. Oh, C stands for color, I guess, because these are color and they have a C. I just have an L. Maybe linear. But yeah, so if we blend these two together, and let's say we keep it at copy and we do 0.5. Actually, we can leave it at 1. The Perlin noise is technically in the middle. It's the background, so it holds that information. So L16. If I were to swap these, the uniform color is now the background, and that takes priority in the output format thingy. So linear 8. So if I were to change this to 16, and then I double click this to refresh it, it'll change. So that's why it's okay to have like an L8 or C8 into the foreground, because whatever's being plugged into the background overrides the output format. So I'm just going to delete this and this. And similar thing, just one last thing, similar thing with texture resolutions, same idea. So for example, so right now this is 2K because this guy is 2K, the guy in the middle, the background. If we were to swap them again, then it go down to 16, and it makes our Perlin noise super tiny. Looks like Minecraft stone. So there you go, Minecraft textures. So just keep that in mind. Oh, whoops, I need that color. So because this is 16 by 16, this is actually really tiny. It looks normal sized here, but if I go to like here, it's tiny compared to this. So we're gonna plug this uniform color into our flood fill to color, and let's switch back our output format. Let's just go to relative to parent, and let's swap this back to color because we need a color input. So what this node does, I'm just gonna do a default one, and then we'll go over these settings. And I'm just gonna duplicate this. I'm gonna make a red one so it's easier to see. So we have bright red. What this does is basically like we've done before. It does an HSL, but it does a lot of work for you. You can change the randomness. You can go, like, let's say you want this to be the base color, but you want some of them to be darker. You go into the, sorry, this is the hue. If you wanted to make them darker, you go into the yellow. This way, some are darker than others. Let's go drastically so you can see. So this is like the base point 0. Now if you're like, okay, I want this to be the base, and I want the other, some of them to be brighter, you go up, and then you get like a random variation, and then you can do that with saturation. I want this to be the base, but I want something to be less saturated. Then you can do that. Let's move this back to 0. Less saturated. I don't know. You can't get more saturated than what it already is. So, and then this is your regular HSL stuff. So I just found this node, or found out about it. Pretty cool. But we're going to go with this one. So these are the settings I'm running. I'm just making them slightly darker than the base, some of them. And I think if you change the seed, you can get, yeah, you can change the, if you don't like the one that you got. So I'm going to go with 3. And then from here, we're going to do a blend. Plug this into the opacity. And then from this uniform color, we're going to drag out. And now you can see here, this HSL is 16 by 16. And that's because it's being driven by this guy. So for this HSL, we're going to do 0.475. And then we're going to plug this into the top. Because this flood fill only detects the white from this mask, and so it's not giving us any information for the black, or it's making it transparent. As you can see here, you can see the grid in between. So what we're doing here is we're adding the in between to be this color. Okay, let's move on. Now we're going to need a blend, set to copy. How did I do this? We're going to drag out from this guy and do another HSL. And we're going to plug this into the top, this into the middle. Okay, let me change this to high res so we can start visualizing our color changes. Let's do 5. That's what we said we're going to stick to. I'm just going to do 6 for now. Okay, and then I'm just going to plug this into a connector just to have myself some wiggle room. And then we're going to move this over here. Okay, so this is what we have so far. I'm going to actually increase the roughness to like 0.75. I don't want the reflections getting in the way. Okay. Now we are going to go back and we're going to pull from diamond's height. So we get diamond's addition, diamond's looping, diamond's height. So from here, because I don't want, this is where we manually lowered to the tiles. I don't want from here, I want from here. So I'm going to drag out like about here, and I'm going to move this just about here. And then I'm going to do an auto levels because I want to make sure I'm using the full range. Get rid of that. And then I'm going to do an ambient occlusion. Actually, I'm just going to copy paste it. With a height depth of 1, radius of 1. So I want to really capture the shadowing. Then we're going to do an invert grayscale. So I can make, so what was shadows is now white. And then here I'm going to do a gradient map. I'm not sure if we've used this node before, but I'll show you what it does. If we do a normal gradient map, because this has been adjusted because I copy pasted from the graph from my other screen. A normal gradient will look like this, gradient map. If you click gradient editor, it'll open up the gradient editor window. And once you click into here, it'll give you your start and your endpoint. And then you can like move these around and you can see down here what it's doing. So this is kind of like a levels, except you get more control because you're able to put these pins in between. And let's say I make this one white. So now you can have like, typically it goes from white to black or black to white, but this way you can go from white to black to white. So you can do some really cool things with this. It's kind of like histogram select, I think, or is it shift? I don't remember their names, but yeah, you can adjust your shadows basically. At least that's what we're going to be using this for. So I'm going to click on these, and then you can see here the position. So if I were to move this, you see the position change. So if you want to match my exact stuff, that's the location for the black pin, and then here's the it's set to 0, and then this one's set to 255, and then this is the position for that one. So that's how you look at the values. And then the color info, you would see it here, or maybe if you want to get the hex code. Okay, we're not going to go too much into that, but that's what a gradient map does. Oh, and the other thing it does while I'm here, you can pick a gradient. You'll get this like cursor, this thing on your cursor, and if you click and drag, you'll see that it leaves behind like a black line. That means you're sampling these colors or these pixels, and then depending on how long you do that for, you'll get more of these little like notches, and you can turn your precision up or down, and you're basically reducing the amount of notches, but because I was holding it for a long time, there's a lot of them, so I'm just going to redo it. And I held it for a lot less time. And then you can turn up your precision or lower it. So let's say I do here. Let's say I go boom real quick. I sampled these colors here, and then I can turn the precision down to get rid of some of them. And you can see that this is out of the colors that I picked up here. But we'll be using this in future tutorials. Okay, so we have our gradient map with our settings there. Let's move on. We're going to do a blur. Those are the settings. And then we're going to do a levels. And then these are the settings. And then we're going to plug this into the opacity. So what I'm doing here is I took the shadowing information of the tiles before they were lowered manually. I got their shadows. I inverted the shadow. And then I played with it here to expand the shadows. And then I blurred it a little bit. And then I lowered the opacity. And then I'm using that bit with this HSL that we got from our in-between color. And you can see here that now I used the shadowing to capture the deep parts or the deeper parts of our tiles. I darkened them to have some nice contrast between the surface of the tile and the broken, damaged parts. So if we hide this is what it looked like before, kind of flat, and now we're adding some shadowing basically to show the depth to make it pop. Okay, then we're going to do a moisture noise. You can see the settings here. And then after this, we're going to do an auto. God, I wish auto levels was the default. We're going to do an auto levels. And then we're going to do a blur again. Those are the settings. And then a slope blur grayscale. Leave the mode set to blur. We're going to slope blur by itself, and we're going to get this effect. You see the difference. And as you're following along, pause the video occasionally, and then play around with oh, okay, what happens if I move my blur up? And then see if maybe you'll like it more. Or maybe once we get to where we add the color, then you go back and change it to something maybe you'll like more. All right, we're going to do a vector warp grayscale here because obviously we're going to be applying this to our tiles and we don't want the continuation of the noise from one tile to the other. Let's get our blend here. And we're setting this to copy. We are going to start a new road from our base uniform. Think of this base uniform as the main color for the tiles. And then we're going to need an HSL. And let's plug this guy in there. And then this guy's going to go on top. Now we need an opacity, otherwise it's just going to put the foreground in front of the background. So let's get a levels here. And these are the settings for the levels. And we're going to plug that in here. So now it's hard to tell because it's how dark it is. But you can see now that we're adding this splotchiness to it to kind of give it more variety on the surface so it's not just flat. So before, after, before, after. Now we have to apply this vector warp because for now it's set to intensity of 5, but it's not reading from anything. So let's plug in what it's going to read from. It's going to read from this guy here. So where is this guy? That's this guy. Coming from the original flood fill. So just follow your road. And then, kind of match it up. Okay, so it's all the way down there. So let's drag this guy. About over here. So now it's breaking up the noise. Let's get rid of this connector because we're moving on. Okay. Now after this guy, we're going to do basically a similar process. We are going to go from before this slope blur scale, or before this vector warp, so right after between those two, we're going to pull from here, make another road below, and just stretch this out because we're going to be using this a lot. So let's go up to here. Now we're going to make a connector right afterwards, and we're going to do a transform 2D. And we're going to plug this into it. And then what I did for this one is I just multiplied it by 2. So just hit this thing. Oh no, I divided it by 2, sorry. So I took this is the default, and then I just hit the divide by 2. You see it goes up to 2. So that's all I did. Then I'm going to copy this vector warp grayscale here and copy and paste it over here. And then I'm going to extend the road a little bit, just so they're not all pulling from the same one. And then the other thing I did is, here we're using an intensity of 5 for this vector warp grayscale, but for this one, I'm going to do 10. Random seed doesn't work with vector warp grayscale because it's the seed is set here. So every time I make a new one using the same texture, using the same noise, because we're using this road here, I'm just going to be increasing it by 5. You could also rotate this texture, but I think it's safer to just change the intensity. At least that's what I thought at the time. Okay, so after this vector warp grayscale, we're going to do a levels. There's the settings. You can probably just round up. So we can probably just go with like 65. Not going to make a big deal or a big difference. Okay, so here we need another blend. And then this time we're going to use a different uniform color, just to, try some other colors other than just black on black on black on black. And we're going to plug this in. Now you can see here that we're getting some splashes. And if you want to make them bigger and stuff, hide your transform 2D because we're using this to double the size or double the tiling. Right? Because before it was this. So if I hide this, this is what it was like before. And then after it, I increased the tiling so there's more of them. And then we put it through the vector warp scale again to break up the noise pattern. If you want more of these to be more noticeable, you guys should know this by now. Go to your levels and then just move this up to make it stand out more if you'd like. And then just play around with these sliders up here and then see what it does, what it do. Maybe you want them to be very solid splashes. You can go with that. So yeah, I always recommend just moving around sliding around some sliders, slidedly. Okay, continuing from the road, we're gonna do another 2D transform. My apologies, we don't need this guy. We're just gonna go directly into a vector warp grayscale. And I think I'm just gonna copy paste it over here. And this one just set to 15 because again, we're just increasing by 5 every time just to get a different seed. And plug that in here. And let's get our road to continue being built. Crap. I'm just gonna plug them in the wrong spot and then just hit X to swap their connections. And then here we're gonna do a levels. And here are the settings. And then same thing. We're just gonna grab these two guys. Well, I have them right here. Plug this in there. Plug in your levels down there. And then this is the color that I used. Oh, I don't know if I showed this color. Just make that 0.2. And feel free to try your own colors out. But obviously this should complement. I guess anything goes with black really. So before, after. So we're just adding some different colors to get some more variation on top. Now we're going to do another vector warp grayscale. This one's set to 20 because we're just adding. Plug that in there. Let's go back to our road. This is the next levels afterwards. Just repeating the same process. And then the color, I'm just doing 0.46 on the V value. So again, just adding more noise to break up the flat coloring. So now we're getting something a little bit more interesting. Okay. Now we're gonna color our our diamonds. For this one, we are okay. We need the mask with the dirt added to the diamonds. So okay, so we're going to go down to where we manually did um, the height or the mask for the dirt after the dirt being applied to the tiles. And we're just going to create a connector. Probably just move this down a little bit. Like right there. And we're going to create another row because we're going to be using this as well. Okay, now that we have that, we are going to make another connector here and we're just going to pull off. And we're going to do an invert grayscale. Because now we're getting, these are the diamonds and this black stuff is the dirt. So that's what we want. Then we're going to do a blend. And now what we need to do is we need to subtract these tiles because we're trying to paint only the diamonds. Okay, so let's find a mask with the tiles. Not that one, this one. So this one doesn't have the diamonds, so we're not going to be subtracting the diamonds from the diamonds. This just has the tiles, which is with the chipping, which is important. So that's the one we want. Oh god, which one was it? Was it this one? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to make a connector here. And then we're going to plug this into the top because we're going to multiply. Because we're trying to, because anything times, no, sorry, not multiply, subtract. Dirt. There we go. Because we wanted to get rid of the tiles. And now we subtracted the tiles from the version with the tiles. And now we have this. This probably other, this is going to be an important mask here. Um, and you know, we have so many masks. Maybe we already did this, but now we have it again. So we're going to need a levels after this. Because this is going to, actually I guess we don't need it, but we'll just have it there for, because that's what I did. Let's do a blend here. We're going to leave it at copy, plug this into the bottom, into the opacity, and then this is the fun part. You can choose whatever color you'd like. I went with orange, or like a golden orange. And now we have our diamonds colored. We're going to make another blend. Now what we're going to do is we're going to paint our ground or our dirt. So this is my dirt color, and notice how all of these are set to 16 by 16 just to save on graph performance. So this is going to go on top, but now we need our mask because right now it's just putting dirt on everything. So as we just did, we just pulled away from here because we just used it. We just used that mask to get to get our diamonds after the dirt. So we're just going to use this guy right here and plug that in there. And that is the mask that we needed. Okay. So now we have our dirt color. Let's move this down. We need another blend. This one's set to copy. Let's pull away from this uniform here. Let's do an HSL and plug that into the top for now. We're going to change the lightness on this HSL to 0.45. We want this to be a darker version of the dirt. Oops. Okay. Now, because we're coloring dirt, I want to reuse the same noise that I used to make the dirt on the height. So where's that? Right here. So since this is the last bit of ground height information, I want to make sure I pull from there. So we already have this one going over here. Let's do this. Let's bring that out. I guess bring it back in a little bit. Actually, it should be over there. But we're going to do a auto levels because we didn't do an auto levels before because I didn't want to change the height of the dirt. But because we're not working with height here, I do want to use the whole range. Okay, so this is what it should look like. And then we're just going to invert it. Because the reason why I'm inverting is because this is, right now, this version, the auto levels version, is the height version. So that means this is the highest point of the dirt, and this is the lowest point of the dirt. What I want to do is invert it so that this becomes white and this becomes black. See, now the lowest point is white, and I'm going to use this to color to make it darker, so that the darker spots in the dirt are darker, and the highest spots are brighter. And I want to make sure that I accentuate that. I should just copy this. Because right now the grayscale right now is, it's very subtle changes, but I want to exaggerate it. So I'm putting it through a levels to get specific white spots and specific black spots. And these are the settings for that. So if we plug this in, the problem is that it's going everywhere. We want to specify where we want this dirt to go, or just dirt color. So we're going to do another blend, and we're actually going to subtract by our dirt mask, which we have right here. And it looks, if you notice, these look different because this is from the main graph, the original graph, and then this is from the one we're working on. Okay, so this is going to go on top, and we're going to set this to multiply. And now you see that the mask is being constrained to the white here, which is our dirt mask, so that's good. So now you can see that we have some variation in our dirt underneath. These are the lowest points in the dirt, and therefore they're darker. So before, after. Again, just about variation. Let's do another blend here and leave this one to copy. Now for this one, we are going to take from this mask again. So that's this guy. We're going to continue the road. And we're going to do an ambient occlusion, because I want the shadowing from it. And I'm going to invert it because I want to work with the shadows, and I want the shadows to be white. The shadows right now are black. So now they're white. Now, as you can see here, ambient occlusion is a pretty expensive node because it's calculating shadows, and shadows in video games and in anything are difficult to calculate. Also, if you don't see these numbers, you just have to go. I think it's this. So what happens if I do reset all? I think that just resets them. I don't think that makes it so that it shows. Let me find out what it is for you guys. Okay, it's this little button, this information button here. Click that, and you can select or check what you want to display. So do display timings, because I think by default it's not on, just if you want to have them. Now this calculation, it's based on when you click a node, the time that it takes to like preview it. That's what the timing is. So it's not always going to be the same. But I know this node is expensive. So what I'm going to do for this guy is I'm going to lower the output size from 2K to 1K. There's not much difference because I want the shadows to be soft anyways. So the lower you go, the more blurry it's going to get. So I'm just going to go down by 1 to 1K. I'm going to double click it to preview it. And then we're going to do a levels after the invert. And these are the settings. I want to tighten up the shadows a little bit because I want this is not going to be used for, I'm using the shadows to create shadowing, or not shadow, but I want the dirt to be around the edges of the tile. So by using the, I'll explain this afterwards. Let's do another blend. I think it'll be easier to visualize once I show you guys. We're going to add now from our typical dirt mask down here. And then we should get this. Then we're going to plug this into the opacity. Oops. And now we need a color. So we're going to take the base dirt color and plug that in. So what I wanted to do here was okay. What I wanted to do here, and I think we have to do some, we're going to have to, oh, I was looking at the wrong thing. Oops. Okay, hold on. Move this down. We're going to need another levels here. Actually, let me just copy paste it. There we go. Let me just double check that. Yeah, okay. We're good, we're good. Okay. So basically, this is what we had before, and then this is what we have now. So I wanted to get kind of like an effect of the dirt kind of like starting to creep on top of the tiles, just on the edges. That was before I did this. That was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to get some dirt to start kind of like blending into the tile and fade out as it gets to the center, obviously. So that's why we used the ambient occlusion. And if you look at this is the mask that I drove into the ambient occlusion. So my thinking here is, okay, if I want to get shadowing on the tiles, right now the dirt is higher than the tiles, right? Because the dirt is white. If we were to plug this mask into here, and then plug in our base color again. So this is what the mask looks like, right? Because the tiles are white, so they're at the very highest point, and the tiles and the diamonds are at the lowest point, right? They're black. So that's why it looks like this. Now, if we do an ambient occlusion, it's going to create shadowing on the deepest parts, and the deepest parts right now are the tiles. So the shadowing is going to be on the tile. So that's why you can see here the shadowing is here. And if we were to put this through a gradient, don't do this part, just watch. It turns the grayscale into a color. And then if we plug this in the color, you can see here the mask in real time, basically. So you can see that it's creating a shadow here. So then I'm like, okay, now I have my shadow. Now I'm going to invert it. So now my shadow is white, and I'm able to use that as a mask. And then I tighten up the shadow. And then here I add the mask again. So this white gets mixed with this white, and we get this. And then here we lower the intensity, and then it gives us this. From this to this, just by using the ambient occlusion. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to plug this back in here. And I'm going to plug our height back into here. Oh, whoops, this in here. All right. So that was my thinking process for that part. All right, so let's continue on. Now we're going to continue this road up here into an HSL. And then we're going to need a blend. Oh, where'd I go? Plug that in there. Again, we just need something in the opacity here. So if I look at my graph, we're going to continue from this road here, which is the noise. We're going to pull from it into a 2D transform. And then I'm just going to divide by 2 to increase the tiling again. I put it through our levels to kind of isolate some of the splashes. And then I'm going to do a blend here with multiply. And I am going to use the dirt mask again. Because again, same as we did before over here, where we wanted to have like darker spots for the darker parts of the dirt. I want to have this splashy effect, not just on the tiles, but also on the dirt. But these are going to be just the dirt splashes, whatever. I'm going to plug that in there. And now if I... Is it working? It's very subtle, so I should probably actually increase this a little bit. Oh. It's because this HSL needs to change. It needs to be 0.45, that's why. I was like, wait a second. I wouldn't have done this. There we go. I made it darker. So before, after, before, after. Just to kind of have more variation on the dirt there. All right. Now we are going to give ourselves some room here. And we are going to continue from our noise here, from our noise road. Oops. I wish you could color code these. Maybe you can, I just don't know. Because then we can say, oh, pull from the red spaghetti. Okay. Or maybe add like patterns, like crisscrosses or like stripes. That could be cool. Be able to identify what it is. Okay. We're gonna do a 2D transform here. And I think for this one, we're just gonna divide again by 2 to double it. And then I'm gonna blur it a little bit. Then I'm gonna do a levels. Now I'm gonna do the same thing over here that I did here, but I'm gonna use the 2K one. So I'm gonna bring this road down a little bit. See, I think ideally you would want to pull from this guy because they're the same thing, except this one's 1K, but this one's 2K. But yeah, it's okay. We're not working at a studio right now. We don't have to worry about this being like super optimized. Unless your computer is struggling, you might want to lower this to 1K as well, or just reuse this one. That way you don't have two ambient occlusion calculation thingies going. Okay, default setting for this guy into an invert grayscale because we're doing something similar to what we just did. We're going to do a levels here. Into a blend, add linear dodge. And we're adding our dirt mask. To get this effect again, then we're going to multiply so this is our little splashes, and then we're multiplying out this black here, so it gives us this effect. So before what we did here, where'd it go? Right here, we added some subtle dirt creeping up, right? That's why it's a little blurry. So it's kind of like because it's sitting so close to the dirt, it creeped up and then it like faded out because people are walking over it and stuff. So here, I wanted to give that effect to the creeping dirt. I wanted to give it this thing. So actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we can probably just reuse this and plug this in here. Yeah, it's not that much different. It's a little different, but not that much different. And this is probably more optimal because now we don't have to worry about doing all this stuff here. But let's see the difference. So this is before and this is after. It's not that much of a difference, just that the creeping is a little less. Actually, what are these lines? Oh, these lines are coming from because this is a lower res. So actually, we'll just stick with the high res. We'll go doing the things the hard way. Is that a problem here though? Oh no, I guess not because it's blending in. There's a little bit of artifacting, but it's not going to be noticeable. They're just pixels. Okay, so now that we have this guy, yeah, see how tiny those are? We're going to do a levels. Let's get our blend in here. This blend set the copy as usual. And then we are going to pull from this guy up here into an HSL. And then this is going to be set to 0.45. So you can see here the difference now. Actually, you can see here that if we double click this guy, you can see that we have this splashiness thing right here. And then in here, I think we have another one directly on top. So I don't want that. I want to shift it a little bit because I don't want two noises sitting on top of each other, especially if they're identical. So I'm going to take this transform 2D here and I'm just going to rotate it 180 degrees. That way they're not sitting on top of each other. There we go. So now that looks better. Alright, we're getting close to the end here. Now we have to paint our rocks. Oh, whoops, I didn't know I had the video paused. Let me undo some of this. Okay, I think this is where I was. So we're going to be painting the rocks now. So let's bring this stuff in here. Let's get our I didn't really do that much. Good thing I noticed quickly. Plug this in. And we're pulling an HSL here with a lightness of 5.25. And this is coming from our rock base color. So it's coming from this guy. And we already had one ending here, so I just continued the road all the way down. Because we want these rocks to be the same color as the main tiles. Okay, so now we need to add up our rocks into a single mask to plug into here. So let's do that. So let's find our rocks. We have 4 sets of them. So let's start with this one right here. We're going to pull out of it and pull all the way to the top. This is where our roughness is going to go in the next part. So I'm trying to go above it. And I'm going to just pull out of it. And then I'm going to pull out of the next set of rocks from the tile sampler. Into a blend. And I'm just going to add whatever incoming rocks are coming before it. So I'm just going to do add. So now you can see now that we have our medium rocks and our large rocks in the same mask. And then we're going to continue along into another blend. Because now we're going to add the next set of rocks. And then change this to add. So now we have our smaller rocks. And then we have one more set of rocks that are in between the tiles, pebbles or rocks. So again from the tile sampler. And then change it to add. Okay, so these are all our rocks that we have. And then we need to drag out from it. Let's move them all one because it's going to line up with the other road. We don't want that. Just a little bit down. And then this is going to plug into the opacity. And now you can see here that our rocks have a different color. Now right now our rocks have their original height information. So you can see that this is the bottom and this is the top. I want the rocks to just be the same color uniform. So we have to get rid of this grayscale. So we're going to do a scan. So let's move this back a little bit. And let's change our position and our contrast all the way up. Now if we hide the scan, this is what the rock used to look like. And then this is what it looks like now. And then we want a blend or a levels. Those are the settings, and we're plugging that in. Actually, the settings didn't change at all. Okay, yeah, because I just kept it the same. But yeah, if you want to change like the intensity of the rocks, you can lower this. But actually, don't do that because then you're making it transparent. You can see here that this is solid, and then as you lower this, you can start seeing the color below it. We don't want that. So yeah, just actually we don't even need this then. Okay. So now our rocks have these. It's still similar shade, but not the same. Actually, I'm seeing that our rocks mask, because of our scan, is actually going just a little bit outside of the border. So I'm just gonna dial that in a little bit, changing the position here, moving it in, and then moving it out, and then moving it in, and then finding the sweet spot. I would say that's pretty good right there. Maybe 99. Let's go with 98. Maybe 98.5. Let's go with 98. So for me, it's gonna be this. For you, it might be a little bit different to just play around with it, and then you want to avoid like the flat area, right? Because the scan is pushing as far as it can. Okay. Now it's gonna get a little bit more fun here. We're almost done. Okay, so now we need to pull away from our main height. So this is the end of our height. So actually I'm gonna mark. Actually, this is the. Is in between one word or is it? No, it's two words. Our in between pebbles are going to be the end of the height. So I'm just going to I'm going to use this as a holder and I'm going to just move this levels. This levels isn't really doing it. It's not doing anything. It's just sitting there looking good. And I'm just going to say end of height. So so I can pull from here and it'll all be the same. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull from right here. And I am going to do a normal. I'm going to make a connector here, put this here, and I'm also going to do another ambient occlusion. Leave this normal at 1, and then we're just going to do like a dirt. We're going to use the dirt node here. Going to do a curvature. And then we're going to do a dirt node, not an F dirt, just a dirt. Plug this into the ambient occlusion and this into the curvature. And then, actually I should just copy paste the dirt so I don't have to worry about looking at the settings. And then you guys can just pause the video. And these are the settings. Now the thing I did differently with this is I don't want the dirt everywhere, so I created a mask. And that mask is just going to be our this is the mask from the original. It has the tiles and the diamonds after the dirt. So do we have that? Who's this guy? No, that's just diamonds. This is just tiles. This is just cracks. This is the other fancy cracks. Okay, so maybe we don't have it already. These are just gonna be the same. Okay. So how did I do that? Let's see. Oh no, we do. Yeah, that's this guy. Wait, where are you? No, not that guy. This guy. Yeah, except the other one's inverted. Okay, so yeah, sorry. So yeah, this guy. So let's just move him down. And then pull out of here. And then into an invert grayscale. There we go. And that gives us that. And then this is going to plug into this mask optional slot here. And you'll see what it does once I do that. I only want the dirt to be on the edges of the tiles, not everywhere. So I added the mask. Gonna do a blend here. Gonna need a levels. And the settings are set to default. I guess I didn't touch anything there, but out of habit, I always like to do a levels. And then this is gonna plug into here. Now you can see here what it's doing. So with this, I tightened up a bit of the blending that I had on the edges. So this is before, and then this is after. Kind of like this more though. Oh, I guess this dirt accentuates kind of like the deep parts a little bit. Actually, I kind of like that. Yeah, it gives it a little bit more shadowing. But yeah, so we'll keep it. Because why not? It's what I did anyways. And I think that the reason for some of this like backtracking is because when I make the original, I don't go in the same order that I do in the tutorials. Because obviously when I'm making them, I'm all over the place in thinking. Because I wasn't gonna do rocks, and then I said I will do rocks, and then I had to go back and like fix things and like move things around, new masks, etc. And the process you're seeing here is like once everything's already been, when all the dust is already settled, so it's much easier to go through it. But when I'm working on it, I'm like going back and forth between color, roughness, and height, and adding and removing things and fixing things and reorganizing the graph, like maybe grabbing this chunk and moving it back here, and grabbing this piece and like, oh, this should have been on top of that, etc. But yeah, this is like the when it's all nice and done, it's nice and neat, and it looks more structured, but it's always messier. Okay, we're almost done. So now we're going to pull again from our end to height for just the last finishing touches here. And we're going to do a normal again. And we're going to make this one intensity of 25. Now we're going to do a curvature smooth. And then we're going to just do a gradient afterwards. And we're not going to touch the gradient. We're going to leave it like this. We're going to do a blend, and we're going to do overlay for this blend mode. Because right now this is what it looks like when it's on top. And we're going to do overlay. I don't really know what overlay does, but it gets me what I want. So if we look at the before and after, this is what it looked like before, and then this is after. So if we look at the mask, because of the curvature map, the the crevices are darker, and the edges like this that are poking outwards. There's a word for it. Convex and I forget what the opposite is, but yeah. So these are sticking out, right? So these are brighter, and these are sticking in, so these are darker. Convex and I'm gonna look it up. Hold on. Convex versus concave. There you go. Easy. I know my lingo. Um. So yeah. So the deep parts. Now which one's which? I would assume concave is the inside because it has cave in it. I'm guessing. So yeah. So it makes that dark and the outside brighter. So it gives us some nice like highlight and some nice lighting on the recesses. So it makes it all pop. Now obviously I don't want this much pop. I wanted to be subtle, so I went with a 0.325. So before, after. We're still getting some pop, but it's not as dramatic. Unless you want it to be that dramatic, maybe that's what you need. We're going to put from the normal into a curvature, just a normal curvature. And then I'm going to do a histogram scan. And we're going to do 0.5 and 0. Why did I do it that way? We're not going to do this because 0.5 and 0 means it's the same. Actually, you know what? We'll leave it. We'll leave it. We'll slide it and see what it does. And then we'll do a blur. And then we'll do an auto. I'm going to lose it. And auto levels. And then we're going to do another scan. Hopefully we actually use this one. 0.25, yes, we do. Actually, let's just delete this one. We don't need it. And then we're going to do a levels. And these are the settings for the levels. That's going to go, oh, we need our blend. That's going to go there. This is going to go in the middle. And then we're going to do an HSL of the previous output. And this HSL is just going to be brighter. So we're going to do 0.55. So you can see here, well, we need to tune this. This is going to be a little bit different. Okay, so what I'm doing here, let's do 0.575 on this one. Okay, so what's happening here is I am isolating the white. So let's change our contrast all the way up. Let's go back to 0.25 and then go up slowly. So you can see here that I am using the scan. I am revealing these white parts here. And then that's being fed into my levels, which I'm using as an intensity. And then I am getting these highlights here. So actually I'm going to leave this all the way up. And then I'm going to tone down the lightness to control the intensity. Actually, no, that's right. We can lower this instead. I thought it was bleeding through the bottom, but the reason why you can see the bottom is because we're using the same thing on the on top as it is on the bottom, which is okay. Because this is just supposed to be like a these edge highlights are a brighter version of what's under it. So a brighter version of everything is what's being driven as the color, and then we're using this as a mask. So let's see, we went with position, and you can play with this if you want more of these to show up or less of them. If you want to do just like the super big hard edges, like if you want to do just these guys, but if you want to start getting into like these guys, then you need to pump up the position. But that also thickens the outline. So this might be like too cartoony. So I want to go with 0.5. Let's go with 0.52. Is my thing set to 5? My height scale? Okay, good. All right. So make sure I give you guys the stuff. This is 0.575 for the lightness, for the HSL, the blur, the auto levels and auto levels. The scan, make sure your contrast is up, or you're gonna get the other values, and it's gonna end up affecting everything because the mask is supposed to be black and white. Because it doesn't have to, but you get the idea. And then there you get your edge highlights. And then there's one more thing. There's one more thing that we're going to be doing here, which is kind of like the what's it called? The shavings, or like if you look at the preview, the like the sprinkled glowy bits. We're gonna actually do that in the roughness portion, because that's just like an easy just like add right here. But that's a lot more work, and I'd rather do that with the roughness because that's where it came from, or where I built it. So we'll leave it there. So, oh, and let's not forget my favorite. We'll do a little sharpening at the end. And I think I used 0.5, but see, this is what it's going to look like in the finished version. But in our version, we're not there yet. So I went with 0.5, and it just kind of makes it a little bit crispier. If you look over here, the difference. I went with 0.5. You can go with whatever you like if you even want to go with it at all. So we went from this to this. All right, I'm gonna cut it here, and I'll see you guys on the roughness part. Take care.